माननीय मंत्री जी, और यहाँ पे आए हुए सभी सज्जन लोगों को मेरा नमस्कार। I would like to continue to speak in English for the rest of my address. First of all, I would like to thank PhD for inviting me to deliver this address. It is a great honor for me to deliver this address in the presence of the respected minister. And I would also like to express my sincere apologies for not being able to come in person. It would have been a great opportunity for me to visit Indore for the first time in my current position. However, because of some exigencies at work, I am unable to come in person. But nevertheless, I again thank PhD and other organizers here for having kindly accommodated me to address virtually. To begin with, I would like to talk about the fisheries sector, the potential for the fisheries sector in India, particularly given the large number of technological advancements that are happening in not only in fisheries sector but also in several other sectors which have an implication for the fisheries sector. So to begin with, I would like to talk about the need for the fisheries sector to upgrade, not only in terms of technologies for production alone, which is absolutely important. We have to adopt world's best practices in terms of fishery products. But even more than that, we should also adopt new practices, new processes, new industries which are going to add a lot of value on top of what is it that we are producing. So, for example, we have to think of processed products coming from fisheries. We have to think about value addition because this is important for several reasons. The first reason is that by doing value addition, by processing further, we are first, as a country, we are able to provide numerous job opportunities to people. This I am talking as a person from the policy making body of India. But on the other hand, it's also for the individual fisheries sector participants, fishers and so on, fishermen. It's going to be extremely profitable because whenever you add value, your prices increase and you're able to make command premium for the highly processed goods. Another aspect is also the longevity and the shelf life of the product. So if it is a raw product, it's not going to stay good for a long time. But because of that, you cannot trade the goods even within the country for long distances, and also from one country to another, from India to other countries. So this is where the processed food products can be really beneficial for the producers. So this is, I'm talking this in the context of fisheries, but it can apply to all the agricultural and allied activities. It's not enough to just produce raw materials, but we have to go up the value chain. We have to produce products processed products, which are high value, therefore creating a lot of profits, greater shelf life, and ability to transport to other places. That also is going to add more value to the product, because once you're able to export to other countries, then the value addition becomes even more. So that is, I mean, because the export markets are typically, willing to pay higher prices, because we are typically targeting the countries which have higher per capita income. So from a trade point of view, since I come from the trade and commerce vertical of NITI Aayog, I would like to emphasize this aspect, that we should create high value products, highly processed products, and export to other countries. And in this regard, our government has been engaged with several countries to negotiate free trade agreements, and all these free trade agreements are going to provide new markets for the exporters. So I think this is something that our brothers and sisters who are engaged in fisheries should be considering, and a lot of them are, they have relatively low incomes. They are small fishermen and so on. Now, by doing these things, they can actually boost their profits, their scale, and so on. So that is the first thing I wanted to mention. The second aspect is also the quality and standards. So if we have to be competitive in the, not only in the global market, but even within the domestic market, if you want to be competitive, if you want to compete against the imports, quality and standards are very important. So typically we think that if we are not exporting, we don't have to think much about quality, because only for the exported goods the quality standards are very stringent. But what is happening over time is that we are also getting a lot of imports in fisheries, fishery products, and other sectors, which are of high quality and low cost, high standards. And then what happens is, if you are not ready to produce high quality goods, high standards goods, then we may start losing out on imports. And this is the crux of what our Honorable Prime Minister mentioned at a very high level in one of our recent meetings at NITI Aayog, our governing council meetings, that we have to increase exports and we have to reduce imports. So this is not about increasing exports as a separate strategy and reducing imports as a separate strategy by raising the tariffs and import barriers, but it is more about developing the capacity to export so that our domestic production expands, and because of that we are also able to compete against the imports more effectively. And this is very important for the fisheries sector, because we are getting a lot of competition from several other countries, like Southeast Asian countries, China of course, and even some of the neighboring countries, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and so on. So we have to be very competitive against all of them, and that can only come from standards. And a related point here, just tying up with the standards point, with the first point I mentioned about technology. By technology, I don't only mean the technologies that are specific to the fisheries sector, but also the technologies that can let the world know that we are producing high quality products. So I'm talking about the digital technologies like blockchain, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, cloud. All these things, we have to harness all these technologies to, for example, come up with the provenance. Where did the fish come from? Where did other fishery products come from? Where are they going? And how do we make sure that the quality is kept at a high standard? And how do we avoid them from being spoiled or perished? And how do we minimize waste and loss of food products during the supply chain? All these things can be monitored and optimized, and also information sharing can be done using these kind of technologies that I mentioned, disruptive technologies. That is very, very important for all the agricultural sectors, as I mentioned before, particularly the fishery sector. And next point I want to mention is that sweetwater fisheries are extremely important, and they are very niche segment. So we know that typically we associate fisheries with the coast. So, and that is why, when I was also thinking of this Madhya Pradesh Fisheries Summit, I was actually initially wondering how come this is happening in Madhya Pradesh and not in a coastal state. But of course, I also came to know that the sweetwater fisheries are very important, and they also have high value, and again, there is also a lot of export potential. So I think that is another thing that has to be emphasized here. Sweetwater fisheries is a sector that we have to develop further, and we have to come up with innovative products there. And typically, when you think of fisheries, again, we only think of fish and fish products, or prawns and squid and all these things. But it could also be other products, like you can think of seaweed, and there could be some technologies wherein one can produce something like seaweed within the sweetwater, indoor water, river water fishery sector. Because these kind of products, there are a lot of these kind of products that are coming up. Many of you might have heard of this term nutraceuticals. There's a lot of nutritious products that are coming from algae or seaweed and all these things. So that is another sector to be explored. In addition to the usual fisheries that we always do, think about all these new sectors. So I think this is quite important. NITI Aayog is doing a lot of taking a lot of effort in several areas which relate to which can be beneficial for fisheries. I talked about the innovation, startups, the technologies and so on. And in this context, startups and innovation are very important. And we have Atal Innovation Center, Atal Innovation Mission in NITI Aayog, which is working with grassroots level innovators across the country, with the students, school students, college students, and young innovators, to come up with solutions for a wide range of problems. And as far as I know, there is a lot of scope for doing such innovations in the fisheries sector. And I would encourage the startups who are in the audience, the technology companies in here, to think about innovative solutions for the fisheries sector and develop them. And any support from NITI Aayog, from our Atal Innovation Mission, is always available. You can contact our colleagues there. Similarly, we also have a dedicated agricultural vertical in which our colleagues there also work on fisheries sector, how to promote fisheries, how to increase the competitiveness of fisheries sector, particularly in the coastal areas, but also in the interior areas. So these are some of the policy priorities being developed here, and a lot of policy suggestions can be then developed and shared with the line ministries. So these are all some of the efforts being taken here, and with all these brief discussions, I would like to conclude my address. Again, thanking Mantriji, बहुत धन्यवाद for coming here, and also for all of you. I wish the summit, the workshop, a great success, and I look forward to many more such workshops to be held for the welfare of our brothers and sisters who are fishermen, and also the upstream and downstream industries, as I mentioned earlier, technology companies, and also startups and processing companies, exporters, and so on. So it's a huge value chain we are talking about. So I again pay my respects and best wishes to everyone in not only in this workshop, but involved in this whole value chain. And I also request PhD CCI and other organizers to come up with many more programs like this, because we need a lot of discussions, meetings and so on, to come up with policy strategies to promote the sector, and also encourage our fishermen to do the great work they are already doing, and also have interactions between the central government and state government, and also with the industry associations. So again, I would like to reassure that we at NITI Aayog are fully supportive of this initiative, and looking forward to many more collaborations. Thank you very much, and namaste, dhanyavad.